Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to be working the relationship between the feet, pelvic floor, and thoracic diaphragm. And I want to think about each of these as levels, foundational levels, kind of like levels of a building, where you have the base floor foundation, which would be the arches of the feet. Pelvic floor would be literally like a level floor of a big building. Thoracic diaphragm would be a higher level of that building. And each of these foundational levels are imperative as far as how they stack and deal with stability in order to maintain overall structural integrity. Real quick, I want to kind of get into thinking about thoracic diaphragm is a big kind of umbrella piece of tissue that is an upside down parabola. It's when it contracts, it draws down, pulling air into the lungs. The pelvic floor is another diaphragm that is inversely related to the thoracic diaphragm, so it's an upward facing parabola. When the thoracic diaphragm contracts, drawing air down, our internal organs shift down. The pelvic floor has to be able to lengthen and give way for our internal organs to be able to shift. Then we can also think about, or I like to think about the feet, the arches of a feet, as another diaphragm. If you put your feet together, we have another downward facing parabola. So it's inversely related to the pelvic floor, which is inversely related to the thoracic diaphragm. And if you look at feet, if you've got your feet have the same amount of arch, whether it's a high arch, middle arch, or low arch, but they're even, then that umbrella, that parabola of the arch is going to be well dispersed as far as how it is able to stabilize for the rest of the body. However, if you have one foot that is more flat, more collapsed of an arch than the other one that is raised, you have a shift, and that shift is going to show up in the pelvic floor as well as the thoracic diaphragm. And it's probably going to show up as imbalances in your gait mechanics. It's going to show up as imbalances in your breathing mechanics. So want to think about those things as we get into working on our feet. We're going to do foot mobility, some deep squat work, and we're going to bringing in turtle breath to get some pelvic floor activation, looking at the difference of how does the right foot feel compared to the left foot and how that might relate to pelvic floor function, dysfunction, as well as thoracic diaphragm function and dysfunction. So with all that, let's get started. So we're going to start with a deep squat assessment. We're going to come back and do the same assessment at the end of class to see if we get any improvements in our deep resting squat. I have not moved today. I feel my low back tight. I'm expecting my deep resting squat to be fairly tight to start with. So to assess our deep squat, I want to start with feet about shoulder width apart, both toes facing forward. If the feet need to turn out a little bit, that's okay. But ideally, I want to work on toes straight. We're going to start with just rocking forward and backwards, rocking to the heels and then to the balls of the feet. And as we shift back and forth, I want to find that point of where we feel the weight of our body dead set through the arch of the foot so that you have even load into your heels and into the balls of the feet. And then from there, I want to maintain that even load as we find our deep resting squat. Oh yeah, it's tight. I'm very rounded forward. Difficult to get my shoulders back, feels tight. And we can do a couple of them just to kind of get a good feel. Again, I want to really feel this assessment so I can notice the improvement by the end of the class. If you're not able to get all the way deep into the squat, it's how low are you able to go comfortably and be able to take a deep breath in and out. All right, so now we're going to come all the way down to the floor onto our backs. With feet flat on the floor, knees bent. We're going to make our two big C shapes with our hands, placing the hands below the rib cage and above the hip bone in that nice meaty section of the abdominal wall. We're going to start with crocodile breath, and then we're going to work into turtle breath. Thumbs are going in around into the low back musculature. Index fingers are wrapping around to feel some of the abdominal musculature. Palms are pressing into the side body musculature. And I want to think like a balloon. On our inhale, we're going to inhale through our nose, and we're going to breathe in and expand that abdominal wall, pushing out into the thumbs and the low back, into the index fingers through the belly, and out through the side palms. On our exhale, drawing navel up and in towards the spine. Allow the hands to clench down just a little bit so that you can create better resistance for that next inhale breath. And we'll get a good 5 or so breaths. And with each inhale, see if you can expand that balloon a little bit bigger. And as you're breathing in and out, start to notice how well does that do the abdominal walls move on the right side of the body compared to the left side of the body, especially in the low back or in the side body. Does one side expand more? Does it move more? And does the other side not move as well? As we get to about 5 breaths, we're now going to lift our feet off the floor. Bring the feet together so that the heels and the ball of the big toe are touching, but the knees are going to be out to about shoulder width apart. We're going to place our hands on our knees and press and extend the arms to fully extend the elbows. And then at the same time, start to pull your knees in. I want to create tension in our abdominal core. So I have to actively push through the hands, actively pull through the knees. And we're going to come right back into our crocodile breath. Nice inhale, filling up that abdominal wall. Exhale. Drawing the navel into the spine, pressing the spine into the floor. As you exhale, we're going to start to bring that breath down into the pelvic floor. So on your next exhale, we're going to do a light Kegel. Imagine that you're trying to hold your pee or hold your poo. I want to squeeze in that pelvic floor, and then on your inhale breath, allow that inhale to expand, that to release the Kegel. Feel that breath move down into the pelvic floor and see if you can feel that Kegel turn into a little bit of stretch, a lengthening in the pelvic floor region. Notice shoulders and neck. I want to make sure that we're not getting tense in the shoulders or starting to lift up the head. Allow the shoulders to relax and soften. We'll get a good 5 to 6 full breaths in. And then we're going to let our feet come down to the floor. And from here, we're going to very slowly come up to a seated position. I want to make sure we're not dizzy or lightheaded as we come all the way up to a stand. And we're going to grab our staff. With our staff, want to get our nice shoulder width grip on the staff. Imagine that we're bending or breaking the staff in two. Again, I want that bend or break to come from the wrists as well as the elbows. So elbows should be spiraling up towards the ceiling, and shoulder blades packing down, moving towards the hip pockets. We're going to start with the staff at our waist, coming back into our breath. Breathing into that crocodile breath, feel that expansion. Exhale, drawing that navel up and into the spine. As we're moving back and forth, we're going to start to allow the pelvis to tilt. As we inhale, pelvis is tilting forward. As we exhale, drawing navel into spine, we're scooping. See if you can feel some mobility, stretch in that low back. Note, do you feel more stretch or even some discomfort as the pelvis is tilting forward, taking you into lumbar extension, or do you feel it more as you exhale and scoop, taking you into lumbar flexion? Also start to notice as you exhale, scoop, can you feel that rib drawing down and your core getting more tight and engaged? And now we're going to start to bring in our shoulders. On our next inhale, as we get nice and sway in that low back, belly extended out, exhale, navel to spine. Again, we have our nice bent break in the staff, active shoulders. We're now going to pull those elbows up towards the ears as we squeeze. Inhale, allow the arms to go forward lightly. Fill up that belly, sway in the back. Exhale, seeing if you could draw those elbows back a little bit more. Notice, how does this feel right side compared to the left, or right shoulder compared to left shoulder? Does one side feel tighter, more restricted? Want to make sure we are not moving into pain. Continuing to feel this nice extended belly, sway in the back, exhale, scoop, feel that core engaged. Rib cage should be moving down as the elbows are pulling back. On the next inhale, as we exhale, we're going to pull into light tension, and then we're going to hold that spot, and we're now going to elevate shoulder blades, reaching up to the ceiling as we exhale. Inhale, pull. Feel those shoulder blades drawing straight down towards the hips. Exhale, push. As you inhale, see if you can bring that inhale breath up into the upper chest. We're doing that at the same time that we're pulling the shoulder blades down. I want to inhale into that chest as I'm pulling down. That may feel counterintuitive to our breath, to the mechanics of that breath. I need to adjust this real quick so it's not in my way. On the next exhale, as we reach up, elevating those shoulder blades, we're going to keep that elevated, and we're coming back to exhale, pull the elbows back towards the ears as we scoop. Inhale, belly opens up as the shoulders come forward. By having those shoulder blades elevated, we ought to get a little bit more range of motion of the shoulders, being able to pull the bar back just a little bit more, although I don't want to force it. We'll go ahead and bring the staff down. We're going to move it to behind the body, palms facing backwards. Still actively bending the staff, but bending it away from the body. So the elbow pits are still spiraling forward. Shoulder blades should be rounding down, packing down towards the back hip pockets, opening up the chest. I want to avoid shoulders being rounded forward. I want to feel those shoulder blades sliding down the back, upper back. Nice inhale into that belly, crocodile or belly opening up, sway in the back. Exhale, drawing navel in as we scoop and lifting elbows up towards the ceiling at the same time. Inhale, let it soften. Exhale, scoop as we lift. After about 10, we're going to flip the palms to the opposite direction. Still bending the staff away from the body. Everything else is going to look the same. Nice inhale into the belly, sway in the low back. Exhale, scoop as we lift. Continue to feel that elbow spiraling forward. We're trying to open up the chest as we scoop and lift. Again, I don't want the shoulders rounding forward as we lift. I want to feel those shoulders packed down and back. Notice chest is opening up towards the ceiling. We'll go ahead and set the staff off to the side. So for foot mobility, I want to go nice and wide with our stance. Feet are facing forward. I'm going to start with my right foot, bringing the right foot forward, spreading the toes and the ball of the foot wide. We're shifting weight over onto that foot. So I got about 75% of my weight on my right leg, less weight is on my left leg. I'm lightly lifting the heel off the ground, just enough that we can slide a piece of paper under that foot. It does not need to be super high, barely lifted off the floor. So again, spread toes, weight shifted, heels lifted, and now we're going to move that knee from internal rotation to external rotation. But as I move that knee in and out, I don't want to lose contact with the ball of the big toe or the ball of the big toe. I want to stay nice and grounded throughout that forefoot as the knee works in and out. If you notice heel, as the knee turns out, that heel is going to turn in. As the knee turns in, the heel is going to turn out. We're literally wringing out the midfoot, trying to get those joints to mobilize, get some synovial fluid into them. Mobile feet are going to be good. Once we get a good 5 to 10 rotations, we can go ahead and switch to the other side. Left leg comes a little bit forward, shifting our weight over onto it. So I got about 75% of my weight. Lifting the heel lightly off the floor. Toes and the ball of the foot are spread wide. And then getting into that nice inward to outward rotation of the knee. Notice if one foot feels stiffer than the other foot. That difference in the right foot and the left foot. We're working through the arches of the feet. So this is going to be an area if one foot is more mobile and the other one is more tense, that at a ground foundational level is going to show up at the next level, which is your pelvic floor, and the level above that in your thoracic diaphragm. So if you find, I'll give my example, my right foot is far more mobile, my left foot is stiffer. In my left hip, in the pelvic region, my left hip is also tighter, my right hip tends to be more mobile. And I get pelvic floor issues with my pelvic floor when those get really out of balance. Okay, we're going to switch back to the right foot. So bringing the right foot forward again. We are now going to bring in our foam, our yoga wedge. I want to move it in at a 45-degree angle so that it slides underneath the ball of the big toe, ball of the second toe, and a little bit under the third toe. The ball of the fourth and fifth toes are on the floor. Shifting weight over onto that foot, again about 75% of our weight. Lightly lift the heel off the floor. Keep the knuckles of that foot nice and spread wide. And we're doing the same thing, inward to outward rotation of the knee. Adding in the wedge is going to add a little bit more mobility into that midfoot region. So we may feel a little bit more stretch. You also might feel a little bit more fatigue in the intrinsic muscles of the foot. Now I'm going to look at that as a good sign. Again, my right foot, pretty mobile, easy to move in and out from. Once we get a good 5 to 10 in and out of the knee, we're going to keep the wedge under that foot. We're going to bring our left foot forward, shifting our weight onto that left foot. Now we're going to actively reach that back heel to the floor, but I'm doing so without shifting weight. I'm keeping my weight on my left, reaching the heel, actively straightening the knee, trying to touch, like I'm trying to touch the wall behind me. If I get that heel reaching down and the knee straight and my weight is shifting forward, we should feel some stretch through the front of that hip. We're then going to soften the knee, plant through the ball of the foot, and drive the heel up to the ceiling. So softening the knee, planting straight down through the ball of the foot, lifting the heel so that we get that nice stretch through the ball of the big toe, and then reaching that heel back, actively straightening the knee. See if we feel that stretch through the front. And we're moving back and forth. Again, most of my weight is still on my front leg, and I'm reaching through that back leg. I'm not shifting my weight into it. Notice, how does that big toe feel on the right foot so that we can compare it to our left foot. And then we'll go ahead and switch to that left side. So again, left foot is a little bit more forward, sliding the wedge in at that 45-degree angle so it goes underneath the ball of the big toe, second toe, and third toes. Weight is 75% over onto that left side, lightly lifting the heel, spreading the knuckles and the toes as wide as possible, getting into that now internal and external rotation of the knee. Again, my left much stiffer on this side. It's harder for me to get into that internal rotation of the knee. At the level of my foot, it's a lot tighter. Which is why I want to work on this fairly regularly in order to try to get a little bit better balance through both arches. Once we get 5 to 10 rotations, right foot is now going to step forward, shift weight over onto that right foot. We're now actively reaching that back heel, actively straightening the knee like you're trying to touch the wall behind you, and then soften the knee, plant through the ball of the foot as you drive the heel up to the ceiling, and then reaching back down. So again, active straight knee, soften, plant, drive straight up, feel that load through the ball of the big toe, and then reach that heel, actively straighten the knee. See if you can feel that stretch on the front of the hip. The more your weight is shifted onto the front foot, as you reach through that back heel and straighten that knee, it should bring some stretch into the front of the hip. How does this big toe feel compared to the other side? Again, my left big toe feels much stiffer. It's much tighter, which again is a signal of some imbalances in gait mechanics. Part of the reason my low back on my right side was a little stiff and achy this morning. And we're now going to come all the way down to the floor, getting into our shin box position. So we're going to go through pretty much the full shin box series today. I am in my left side shin box. My left knee is forward. I'm bringing my left hand to the outside of my hip. I want to ground that palm down. I don't want to be on my fingers or on the knuckles. I want the palm to be reaching into the floor. Elbows are spiraled out and away, feeling that shoulder packed down and back. And weight is shifted onto my left hip so that my right hip is off the floor. I don't want to sit on that back hip. I want it lifted up. Getting nice breath, bringing into our crocodile breath. Inhale, exhale, feeling that navel draw into the spine. We're going to start with some hip openers. On the next inhale, as we exhale, we're going to lift that knee up towards the ceiling, nice and slow, squeeze at the top. Inhale, bringing it back down. Notice how does it feel? How tight does it feel? Also notice how high are you able to lift that knee? And I want to make sure our weight is shifted on the opposite hip. I don't want to shift weight into it. I also don't want to open up my shoulders. I'm not trying to turn into it. I'm staying grounded on my left side as I open up that right side. And once we get a good 5 to 10 reps, we can slowly transition to the other side. Right side, grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder. Weight is shifted onto my right hip. Nice inhale into the crocodile breath. Exhale, navel to the spine. On our next inhale, as we exhale, nice slow lifting of that knee to the ceiling. Inhale as we let it back down. Again, notice how tight does the hip feel and how high are you able to go. My left hip, I don't have as much range of motion. It's tighter on this left side, which is related to that same tightness I was feeling in my foot. So that relationship of the foot and the pelvis are paired together. Tightness in one is going to mean that there is tightness in the other as well. And at the level of the pelvic floor, that is a pretty significant thing. So part of the reason I want to assess it so that we recognize that the imbalances are there so that we can actually work on them more actively. Come back to the other side, our starting side. So again, grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder, weight is shifted. We're now looking at the range of being able to reach that back hip to the floor and lift it up and scoop it forward without shifting weight back. So I want to keep that weight on the left hip. We're going to inhale, and I want to feel the weight of my inhale breath, almost like there's lead in that breath, and it's just sinking down into that back hip. Reaching that hip to the floor. I want to feel the weight of the breath. I don't want to shift my body weight into it. See if you can touch the floor with that back hip. On our exhale, we're lifting it off the floor. We're reaching that hip bone forward and we're scooping into it all at the same time. The more we're able to lift, reach forward, and scoop, we should feel that stretch kind of going down through the inner thigh, getting into that groin space. Notice how much range of motion do you have with that back hip? How far does it travel? Are you able to touch the floor, or how close can you get as you exhale and scoop? Are you able to get full extension? And with that last bit of scoop, can you start to feel some contraction in the glute? And I want to compare all that to the other side. So again, we'll go ahead and transition over. Grounded palm, spiraled out elbow, packed shoulder. Weight is shifted. Nice tall spine. Nice inhale, filling up that crocodile breath, and feel the weight of that breath fill up that back pull of the pelvis, reaching it to the floor. Exhale, navel to spine as we reach forward and scoop into it. Now my left hip does not go as far down to the floor, and it's a lot tighter getting into going forward and scooping into it. I'm able to get some contraction of the glute, but generally with this left hip, it takes a little bit of extra work to really get it to mobilize. Again, this is congruent with the arch of the foot and the issues in the pelvic floor, which is why this is based on my injury history, the things that are in my body. I have to work on this every single day. But just from doing a few, I'm already starting to get more mobility. It's starting to move a little bit better. It's a little easier to get that movement into that hip. So now we can go ahead and transition back to the starting side. We're going to do the same movement through the hip, and we're going to add a reach with rotation into it in the upper body. So grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder. Our weight is still shifted forward. Inhale into that back bowl of the pelvis, reaching to the floor. Exhale, lift, scoop, and I want to lock in that scoop so that you feel that stretch. And from there, we're reaching. We're going to take our opposite hand and we're going to reach straight through the knee. Spiral your palm up towards the ceiling. Spread your hand and see if you can extend your elbow fully. Inhale, we're bringing it all the way back, filling up that back bowl, reaching it to the floor. Exhale, lift, scoop, lock that back hip in, and then spiral palm up, extend elbow, spread hand. Going back and forth a good 5 times. As we're getting into it with each one, I'm seeing how far can I kind of press through that back knee, and how far can I get my fingers to extend out away, rotating into it. I really want to get as much turn in my upper body on each one. And I want to do that without leaning forward. I'm not letting my shoulders fold forward or extend over my hips. I'm keeping my shoulders in the same position. I'm just spinning my spine, kind of pivoting around that braced shoulder, that grounded palm. And we'll go ahead and transition across to the other side. Grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder. Inhale into that bowl, filling it up, and coming back to this. This actually already feels a lot better. That's getting that hip down to the floor. Exhale as it lifts and scoops, and then opening up that hand, spiraling palm up, extending elbow. Inhale into that back hip. Exhale, lock in that hip first, and then reach and rotate. And again, this is, it's tighter on this side. So left hip is tighter going into extension, although it's loosening up considerably, but it's still tighter than the right side. And the rotation is a little tighter as well. So again, noting how foundational levels, foot, pelvis, then also start to create mobility differences up into the thoracic diaphragm area and shoulders. We'll go ahead and switch back to our starting side. I still want that weight shifted over on the left hip, but now we're bringing that left hand off the floor. Forearm is going to be flush with the ceiling. We're still inhaling into that back hip, exhaling, lifting it forward, reaching the hip bone forward and scooping into it. And then opposite side, we're reaching down through that opposite hip as we lift up through the elbow, trying to get long through the side body. I want to see if we can feel kind of a nice long side body stretch. Low back, up into the shoulder area, reaching through that elbow to the ceiling. So again, inhale, fills up that back bowl. Exhale, lift, scoop. Then opposite side, reach. And I want to reach without dropping the opposite shoulder. I don't want to drop this shoulder to get that elbow up. I want to lift that opposite elbow as I reach through the opposite hip. And then we'll slowly transition across to the other side. Again, hand comes off the floor, forearm flush with the ceiling. Inhale into that back bowl. Exhale as it lifts, scoops. And then opposite side, reaching into the floor with the hip as we lift through the elbow. Inhale, let it drop down into that back hip. Exhale, lock that hip in, and then add that reach up to the ceiling. Notice, how does this side feel compared to the other side? Again, left hip is tight, so is this right side lower back. So everything related to this left hip is significantly tighter than everything that's related to the right hip and the right foot. We'll go ahead and bring it back to our starting side. So again, back to left hip. We're now going to get into our folds. We're still breathing into that back hip. Exhale as we lift and scoop actively. And here I want hands square with our shins, shoulders square with our hands. As we exhale, reaching straight through the shins, seeing how far can we slide our fingers evenly. I don't want one hand reaching further than the other hand. Inhale brings us all the way back up. With each one, we're seeing if we can reach a little further. Inhale, bringing it all the way up. And one last little cue on this. As we reach through the fingers, trying to extend forward down the wall, the line of the floor, imagine you're also reaching through your tailbone along the line of the floor behind you. And once we do about 5, we can then switch and do the same thing on the other side. Again, want to keep the shoulders and hands square with that front shin to the best that we can. Inhale into that back pelvic bowl. Exhale as we lift and scoop. And then nice exhale as we reach. Again, notice the difference on this side compared to the other side. So again, my left hip, significantly tighter than the right hip. It's also tighter as I get into the fold. I can feel that left hip. I can also feel my right glute and my low back. So all the things that are related to this left hip and left foot. Once we even out, now we're going to start working side to side, doing one fold on each side. At this point, I'm less concerned about maintaining my shin and squared shoulders to the shin. Now we get to be a little bit more in a state of explore. Nice fold as we reach forward. Inhale as we bring it up, and then we're just transitioning all the way across to the other side. And we're gonna do a good 10, maybe 20 reps going side to side. And going nice and slow. I do not want to get into a rush. I want to move at the speed of our breath, which is a nice slow inhale and a nice slow exhale. With each reach of the fingers, I'm also continuing to slide that tailbone back. Then once we get a good 3 to 5 reps side to side, we can start to play with changing our shin box angle, letting that back leg slide open a little bit as we get into our fold. And then doing the same thing on the other side. And each one, we can open up that shin angle a little bit more. Making sure that we're finding that same position on both sides, noticing if there's any differences, especially in that back hip. Does it feel tighter when you move that back hip on the right side compared to the left side? And we'll continue to open it up until we get closer and closer to what we would consider a yoga class pigeon pose. And at this point, the hips should be feeling a lot more loose, more limber, and a little bit more balanced out compared to one another. And we'll finish up with one more. And then we're going to come back up into our standing position. And now, we can either grab 2 wedges, or we can use a 2x4, if you have like a 4-foot 2x4. With the wedges, I want the wedges to be about shoulder width apart, evenly placed together. We're going to step so that our heels are on the wedges, but the balls of our feet are on the floor. The wedges are lifting the heels, that are going to help get into our deep squat a little easier. And this allows us to do some mobility work in our deep squat. We're going to spend a decent amount of time in the deep squat. So if your knees get fatigued, if your back gets fatigued, take breaks, stand up, shake it out. I don't want to endure. I don't want to make it painful. If it feels like it's too much, then keep it light. Don't force it. We're going to take a nice breath as we drop down into our squat. With the wedge, my deep squat is almost perfect. I got a nice straight spine. I'm able to get into it deep. It doesn't look anything like it did at the beginning of the class. From here, we're going to come back into our breath, starting with crocodile breath. Breathing in, feeling that expansion of the abdominal wall, forward, out through the side body, and into that low back. As we exhale, do a light Kegel. Again, feel that pelvic floor tighten up and squeeze, and then allow that inhale breath to go in and expand that Kegel, getting it to lengthen and stretch on the inhale. Get a good 5 breaths here. And then again, if you need to take breaks, go ahead and stand up, shake the legs out. The next thing, as we drop in, we're now going to do some just simple hip mobility. Opening up the knees, rotating that knee out and away on the right side, bringing it back in, and then doing the same thing to the left side. Nice little exhale as we open up. Inhale as we let it back in. Again, notice how does that feel on the right hip compared to the left hip. After 5 on each side, again, we can come out of it, shake it out. We want to make sure that we're not getting into painful patterns. If you're good, we'll drop back into it. I'm going to change my position. And now we're going to do some deep squat cat-cow. On our inhale, I'm letting my elbows kind of rest on my knees, but I'm turning my palms up. I want to feel the shoulder blades draw down and back like I'm opening chest up to the ceiling. On that inhale, on the exhale, I'm spiraling my palms down and reaching forward at the same time that I'm scooping my tailbone. I'm trying to get as rounded in my low back and upper back. Inhale, spirals the palms back up to the ceiling. Feel the shoulder blades try to set down and back as the chest tries to open up to the ceiling. Exhale, nice rounding low back to upper back. After about 5, 6 breaths, again, we'll stand up, come out of that position, give it a little bit of a break. As we come back down, now we're going to stack hands on the floor. So I got one hand on top of the other. I'm going to take that top hand, I'm reaching it up, and I want to drag my upper arm on my ear as I let my eyes look up to my fingertips, reaching straight up to the ceiling. I want my palm to stay facing forward. I don't want my palm to turn out to the side. I don't want my arm reaching out. I'm bringing it straight up to my ear, following my eyes to my fingertips. Palm is facing forward. Inhale as we bring it back down. Switch hands. That one was a little bit away from my ear. That shoulder felt tighter. I want to really feel that arm come tight to the ear as I lift up so that I'm getting this more opening up through the thoracic. I'm not getting so much of this mobilizing through the shoulders. Oh, left shoulder is tighter, stiffer than the right shoulder. Again, after 5 or so, we're going to stand up, shake it out. And then the last one is going to be more rotation. So coming back in as we get into our deep squat, I'm going to let my hand come down either to the side or a little bit behind my heel. And then I want to turn and see how much can I reach behind. I'm allowed to shift weight a little bit to the heels or onto that hand. Exhale as I reach. Inhale as we bring it all the way across. And then switch to the other side. Can go nice and slow. I want to feel that grounding of the palm to the floor as we go back and forth. And then we're going to come back up to our standing position. We can kick our wedges off to the side. Now we're going to reassess our deep resting squat, coming back to what we were looking at the very beginning of the class. So feet shoulder width apart, rocking heels to the balls of the feet, finding that dead point right through the center of the arches, even weight on the heels and on the balls of the feet. And then from here, kind of finding that deep resting squat position. Feels a little bit, I'm still rounded forward. My steep squat's not perfect, but I feel a little bit more upright. I got a little bit more of a straight back than I did at the beginning of the class. And it feels a lot easier to get in and out of. Still have some low back tightness. I don't expect it to go away just from one mobility session, but significant improvement. Hopefully you experience the same.